It was a cold evening in December. The small town streets were quiet, covered with soft snow. Warm yellow lights shone from a bakery at the corner. Inside, the smell of fresh bread and sweet cream filled the air. People laughed and talked as they ordered cakes and cookies. Outside that same bakery stood a woman and her little son. The woman's coat was old and torn at the edges. Her hands were red from the cold. The boy, about 6 years old, held her hand tightly. His eyes were wide, staring through the bakery window. Inside, on the glass shelf, sat a beautiful chocolate cake. It was covered with cream roses and golden sprinkles. A small card on the side said, "Birthday special, $20. The boy whispered softly, "Mama, look. It's so beautiful." The woman smiled weakly. "Yes, my dear, it is." She opened her small purse. Inside were only a few coins, not even enough for a loaf of bread. She sighed, looking at her son, then back at the cake. For a moment, she imagined it, her son's birthday tomorrow, a candle on that cake, his smile bright and happy. But reality hit her hard. She quickly closed her purse and held his hand again. "Let's go home, Sam," she said gently. "It's getting cold." But Sam didn't move. His small eyes still looked at the cake, shining with hope. Then he nodded slowly and said, "It's okay, Mama. Maybe next time." Her heart broke hearing those words. She wanted to give him everything, but she couldn't even afford a cake. They turned to leave. The bell on the bakery door rang as someone entered. The warm light from inside spilled out onto the cold street. The woman glanced back for a second. A tall man in a dark coat had walked in. She didn't think much of it and started walking away. The snow began to fall harder now. Sam's small boots left tiny footprints on the white ground. Inside the bakery, the stranger stood silently for a moment. He noticed the empty spot near the window where the woman and child had been standing just seconds ago. His eyes followed their direction outside, watching them disappear into the snow. Then quietly, he looked at the same chocolate cake, the one the boy had admired. Without saying a word, he pointed at it. "I'll take that one," he said softly. The shopkeeper smiled. "Good choice, sir. It's fresh and lovely." The man nodded. "Please, pack it nicely." A few minutes later, the woman and her son reached the end of the street. Suddenly, they heard someone call out behind them, "Ma'am, please, wait." The woman turned around, surprised. It was the same man from the bakery, holding a box in his hands, the cake box. She froze. "Sir," she asked, confused. The man smiled kindly. "You forgot this," he said, handing her the box. "But we didn't buy anything," she replied, her voice shaking. He looked at the little boy, then at her. "It's for him," he said softly. "Please take it." Her eyes filled with tears. "No, sir, we can't accept." But before she could finish, the man gently placed the box in her hands. "Every child deserves a smile," he said, and then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the falling snow. The woman stood there, speechless. Sam slowly opened the box. Inside was the same chocolate cake from the window. His eyes sparkled with joy. "Mama, it's the same one," he shouted, hugging her. She could barely speak. "Yes, my son, it is." As they stood in the snow, the bakery lights glowed behind them. The world felt warmer for a moment. The woman looked down the street where the man had gone, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Who was he, Mama?" Sam asked quietly. She smiled faintly, wiping her tears. "Maybe?" she whispered, "an angel." The cold wind blew softly as they walked home, carrying the cake, the warmth of kindness, and a mystery that would stay with them forever. The next morning was quiet. Soft sunlight touched the small window of a tiny room. On the table sat the same chocolate cake, the one the stranger had bought for them. The boy Sam woke up early. His first words were, "Mama, can I look at the cake again?" His mother smiled sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart, but be careful." Sam opened the box like it was treasure. The cake was still perfect, creamy, sweet, and beautiful. He stared at it for a long time, smiling. Then he whispered, "Mama, maybe God sent that man to us." His mother looked at him and nodded. Maybe he did. Later that day, they shared the cake with their neighbors, people who also had very little. Everyone enjoyed it, laughing and thanking them. The woman felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. But deep inside, one thought kept returning. Who was that stranger? Why did he help them without even asking for their names? That evening, the woman returned to the bakery. She wanted to thank him. Maybe someone there knew him. The bell over the bakery door rang as she entered. The warm smell of sugar and bread filled the air again. The same shopkeeper looked up and smiled. "Oh, you again. How was the cake?" "It was lovely," she said softly. "Sir, may I ask? The man who bought it yesterday? Do you know him?" The shopkeeper thought for a moment. Tall man, dark coat, quiet voice. "Yes," she replied quickly. He shook his head. "No, ma'am. I've never seen him before. He came in, bought the cake, paid in cash, and left. Didn't even give his name." The woman's heart sank. She wanted to thank him properly, maybe return his money someday. But now, it seemed impossible. She left the bakery slowly, holding her son's hand. The night was cold again. As they walked home, Sam looked up and asked, "Mama, will we see that man again?" She hesitated, then smiled softly. "I don't know, my dear, but if we don't, maybe someone else will." Kind people always appear when we least expect them. Years passed. Sam grew older, stronger, wiser, but he never forgot that night. The image of the stranger handing them the cake stayed in his heart. It became a lesson: help others quietly, without expecting anything in return. He often told his friends. One good act can change someone's life. When he turned 16, he began working part-time in a small cafe after school. He loved serving people, especially children. He always smiled when someone came in hungry but short on money. One rainy afternoon, a young mother entered the cafe with her daughter. They looked tired, their clothes damp from the rain. The little girl stared at the cakes on the shelf, her eyes wide with longing, just like Sam's eyes years ago. Sam watched them quietly from behind the counter. The mother checked her small purse, sighed, and whispered, "Not today." "Dear." As they turned to leave, Sam called to the cashier softly, "Pack that cake, the pink one with strawberries." The cashier looked confused. "But they didn't pay, I'll pay," Sam interrupted, smiling. He took the box and walked outside. "Excuse me?" he said to the woman. "You forgot this?" She looked at him, surprised. "But we didn't. It's for her," he said, nodding at the little girl. "Every child deserves a smile." Her eyes filled with tears the same way his mother's once had. She whispered, "Thank you. God bless you." Sam smiled and turned to go back inside, the rain washing over his face. As he walked, something made him stop. The woman called out, "Wait," and ran toward him. She handed him a small white envelope. "What's this?" Sam asked. "Just a thank you note," she said with a gentle smile. "Please open it later." He nodded and watched them walk away through the rain. When he went home that night, he opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in neat handwriting. It said, "To the kind stranger who bought this cake, may your kindness return to you one day." Below the message was something else, a small old photograph. Sam froze. In the photo was a young woman, smiling softly, holding a little boy beside her. He stared at it in shock. The woman was his mother. The boy was himself, from years ago. The rain tapped gently on the window as he whispered, "How is this possible?" Sam couldn't sleep that night. The letter and photograph lay on his desk under the dim yellow lamp. He kept reading the words again and again, "May your kindness return to you one day." How could this happen? The photo was real. Old, faded, but real. It showed his mother smiling gently, and little Sam beside her, holding a small cake. The same cake that the stranger had bought for them years ago. He whispered to himself, "Did that woman know my mother? Or was it just a coincidence?" The next morning, he showed the letter to his mother. Her face turned pale when she saw the picture. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held it. "Where did you get this, Sam?" she asked, her voice soft and shaky. He told her everything, the woman in the cafe, her daughter, the cake, the letter. Tears welled up in her eyes. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I had only one copy of this picture. I kept it in an old box, but it went missing years ago." Sam frowned. Maybe the woman? Maybe she found it somewhere. His mother shook her head slowly. Or maybe she was meant to find it. The room fell silent. Outside, the sound of church bells echoed faintly in the distance. Days passed, but the mystery stayed in Sam's heart. He couldn't forget the woman's face or the note's words. Something inside him kept whispering, "There's more to this story." He decided to find out. Every evening after work, he visited the cafe and looked around the street, hoping the woman might return, but she never did. Then one Sunday afternoon, while cleaning the cafe tables, Sam found something under one of the seats, a gold bracelet, simple but elegant. Inside it, engraved in tiny letters, were the words, "For Daniel, forever grateful." Sam froze. The name Daniel echoed in his mind. It sounded familiar. He remembered hearing that name years ago, from his mother. One night, when he was small, he had asked her about the stranger who bought the cake. She had told him softly, his name might have been Daniel. "I think I heard someone call him that once." Sam's heartbeat quickened. Could this bracelet belong to the same man? That night, he sat beside his mother and showed her the bracelet. She stared at it for a long time, her eyes distant. "I remember that name," she said quietly. "After your father passed away, there was a kind teacher named Mr. Daniel who helped us with food sometimes. But he moved away before you were born." Sam looked at her. "You think it could be the same man?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But if it is, then maybe he's the one who bought the cake all those years ago." "Right." She smiled sadly. "People like him don't disappear, Sam. Their kindness travels from one heart to another." Her words stayed with him all night. The next week, Sam asked around town about Mr. Daniel. Some older people remembered him, a quiet man who used to teach at the local school. They said he always helped anyone in need, never talking about it. An old shopkeeper told Sam, "Yes, I remember Mr. Daniel. He once bought a birthday cake for a poor woman and her child. That was many years ago." Sam's heart almost stopped. "Do you know what happened to him?" The shopkeeper sighed. "He passed away a few years back. But his daughter still lives nearby, in the old blue house across the hill." Sam thanked him and stood outside the shop, frozen. So it was true. The man who helped his mother, the stranger, was Mr. Daniel. That evening, he decided to visit the blue house. The road was long and quiet. The sky turned orange as the sun went down. Birds flew home, and the air smelled of rain. When he reached the house, he saw a small garden full of flowers and an old gate half open. He hesitated, then stepped inside. Through the window, he saw a woman arranging flowers in a vase. She looked gentle and calm. Sam slowly knocked on the door. The woman opened it with a polite smile. "Yes." "Ma'am," Sam said softly, holding the bracelet and the letter in his hands. "I think these belong to your family." The woman's eyes widened as she looked at them. Her voice trembled. Where did you find these?" Sam took a deep breath. "I believe they're connected to someone named Mr. Daniel." Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "He was my father." The woman stood frozen at the door, staring at the bracelet and the old letter in Sam's hands. Her eyes filled with tears before she whispered, "Please, come inside." Sam stepped into the small house. The air smelled of fresh flowers and old memories. Every wall held framed photos, a smiling man in a teacher's suit, children in classrooms, and one picture of a younger woman beside him. She led Sam to the living room and offered him tea. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "You said you found these in a cafe?" "Yes," Sam replied softly. "A woman left them behind. I didn't know what they meant, but when I read the name Daniel, I thought maybe it was connected to your family." The woman's eyes softened. "It was Daniel was my father. He passed away 12 years ago." Sam lowered his head. "I'm sorry, he was a kind man." She smiled faintly, wiping her tears. He was more than kind. He believed kindness could travel farther than we think. Even before he died, he kept a small box of letters, messages he wrote to strangers he had once helped. Sam looked up, surprised. Letters? Yes, she said, standing and walking toward a wooden cabinet. She opened the top drawer carefully and pulled out a small tin box. It was old and covered with dust. She placed it on the table and slowly lifted the lid. Inside were neatly folded letters, dozens of them, each with a name or a place written in faded ink. Sam's heartbeat quickened. She picked one envelope from the pile and showed it to him. The name on it was written in delicate handwriting, to the woman with the little boy from the bakery. Sam's eyes widened. That's my mother, he whispered. The woman nodded gently. Then this belongs to you. Sam's hand shook slightly as he opened the envelope. Inside was a short letter written years ago in blue ink. I don't know your name, but I saw your eyes that night, tired yet full of love. You reminded me of my own wife when times were hard. Please don't lose hope. Someday your kindness will come back to you, even if I am not there to see it. Sam felt his throat tighten. The handwriting was warm and calm, like a voice from the past. He whispered, he really was the man from the bakery. The woman, Mr. Daniel's daughter, nodded. My father told me that story many times. He said a poor mother and her son once stood outside a bakery, looking at a cake they couldn't afford. He couldn't forget the sadness in her eyes. He said he bought the cake for them and walked away, hoping they'd remember kindness more than the man himself. Tears rolled down Sam's cheeks. We did. I never forgot him. The woman smiled softly. Then he'd be happy to know that. She reached for something else inside the box, a small photograph. It was old and slightly torn at the edges. It showed Mr. Daniel standing outside the same bakery, holding a paper bag in his hand, smiling faintly at the camera. Sam looked at it in silence, his heart heavy with emotion. I wish I could have met him, to say thank you. The woman looked at him gently. Maybe you already did in your own way. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? She leaned forward. That woman who gave you the letter, she came here once. She said she wanted to thank my father for what he did, but he had already passed away. She told me she would carry his kindness forward. Maybe she saw something in you, something that reminded her of him. Sam sat quietly, processing every word. The rain began to fall outside, tapping softly against the window. Just like the night years ago, he looked down at the letter again. Those words, written by a stranger, had changed his entire life. He folded it carefully, held it to his chest, and said softly, he gave hope to my mother, and now he's given it back to me. The woman smiled through her tears. That's what he wanted, for kindness to keep moving. Outside, the rain slowed, and sunlight broke through the clouds. As Sam stood to leave, she handed him another envelope. This one, she said, was the last letter he ever wrote. Maybe it's time it found the right person. Sam looked at her curiously. Who is it for? Her eyes shimmered as she whispered, for the boy with the cake. Sam stood at the doorway of the blue house, holding the second envelope the woman had given him. The paper felt old and soft, its corners bent with time. Written across the front in fading blue ink were 5 simple words. For the boy with the cake. His heart pounded as he looked up at Mr. Daniel's daughter. He wrote this for me. She nodded softly. He wrote it years ago. I never knew who the letter was meant for. Now I do. Sam stared at the envelope for a long moment. The room was quiet, except for the gentle ticking of a small clock on the wall. Finally, he opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small folded map. He unfolded the letter first. The handwriting was neat, slow, and full of warmth. To the boy with the cake. You may not remember me, but I remember you. That night outside the bakery, your smile gave me hope. I was an old man then, thinking my kindness didn't matter anymore. But when I saw you hold that cake, I saw joy again. I believe life moves in circles. One day, you'll stand where I stood, helping someone else, even if you don't know why. When that happens, you'll understand what kindness truly means." Sam blinked back tears. The words felt alive, as if Mr. Daniel himself was speaking from another time. At the bottom of the letter, one last line was written: "If you ever want to find me, follow the map. The answer is waiting there." He slowly unfolded the small piece of paper. It showed the outline of the town, the old bakery, the cafe, and beyond that, a small hill marked with an X. Sam looked at the woman. "Do you know what's there?" She smiled sadly. "Yes, it's where my father rests." Later that afternoon, Sam began walking up that hill. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, and the wind carried the smell of pine trees. Every step felt heavier. The ground itself was filled with memories. At the top stood a small graveyard surrounded by white fences. Flowers of different colors swayed gently in the wind. He found the stone with the name Daniel Reed engraved on it. Below the name were the words, "He believed in small acts of kindness." Sam knelt down and placed the old letter beside the grave. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then, softly, he said, "Sir, I finally found you." The wind blew stronger, and a few petals from the flowers scattered across the ground. Sam smiled faintly. "You gave my mother hope when she had nothing. You gave me a story that shaped my life. I don't know how to thank you, but I'll try to live like you did." He stayed there quietly for a while, the silence filled with peace. When he stood up to leave, he noticed someone behind him, a woman holding a small bouquet of white roses. She smiled kindly. "I thought I might find you here." It was Mr. Daniel's daughter. She placed the flowers on the grave and said, "He would have been proud of you." Sam looked down at the grave again. "Your father changed our lives. Because of him, I learned what real kindness means." The woman nodded. "He always said kindness never dies, it just finds another heart to live in." As they stood there together, the clouds parted slightly, letting a soft ray of sunlight fall on the grave. Sam turned to her. "I want to do something for him. Something that keeps his message alive." She smiled through her tears. "Then start where he did with a cake." Sam looked down the hill where the town lay, the bakery, the cafe, and the streets full of people rushing through life. He knew what he had to do. "I'll open a small bakery," he said quietly. "A place where no one leaves hungry, even if they can't pay. I'll call it Kind Crumbs." The woman smiled warmly. He would have loved that name. Sam looked at the grave one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Daniel, for everything." The wind rustled the trees gently, almost like a reply, as Sam walked back down the hill. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting his path. The story had come full circle. One man's act of kindness had passed through time, found a new heart, and begun again. The morning air smelled of sugar and coffee. A small bell above the door jingled as the first customer stepped inside. A brand new bakery, the sign outside read, "Kind Crumbs, where every slice has a story." Inside, sunlight touched the glass shelves filled with warm bread, cookies, and colorful cakes. Behind the counter stood Sam, now in his late 20s, wearing a simple apron and a quiet smile. It had been 3 years since he visited Mr. Daniel's grave. That day on the hill had changed everything. He had worked hard, saved every coin, and finally opened this bakery in memory of the man who once gave him hope through a single cake. A photograph of Mr. Daniel hung on one wall, beside another photo of Sam and his mother from long ago. Underneath it, a small sign read, "Kindness never disappears. It only travels." Every morning, Sam placed one cake on a special shelf near the window with a card that said "Free for someone who needs a smile." He never asked who took it. He just watched quietly as people came and went. One chilly afternoon, the sky turned gray again. The smell of rain drifted through the air. Sam was cleaning the counter when the doorbell rang. A little boy stepped in with his mother. The boy's clothes were worn, his cheeks red from the cold. He stopped in front of the window shelf and stared at the free cake. A small chocolate, one with white cream roses. Sam froze for a moment. The scene felt painfully familiar. The mother whispered, "Come, dear. We can't afford it." But before she could pull him away, Sam smiled and said softly, "Excuse me, ma'am." I think that cake is waiting for your son. She looked surprised. No, we can't. It's a gift, he said warmly. From the bakery. The boy's eyes shone. Really? Sam nodded. Really? Go on, take it. As the little boy lifted the cake box, his small hands trembling with excitement, Sam felt a wave of emotion rush through him. The same feeling he had as a child outside that old bakery years ago. The mother's eyes filled with tears. God bless you, young man. You don't know how much this means? Sam smiled gently. I think I do. They left with the cake, the bell ringing softly behind them. That evening, after closing time, Sam sat near the window watching the rain fall. His mother joined him, older now, but still smiling the same gentle smile. You did it, she said proudly. You carried it forward. He looked at her and nodded. I just followed the circle he started. She looked at Mr. Daniel's photo on the wall and whispered, He'd be proud of you, Sam. Sam smiled, his eyes glistening. He taught me that even small kindness can echo for years. Maybe that's what life is, a chain of kindness we keep passing on. They sat quietly, listening to the soft rain tapping the windows. The next morning, Sam opened the bakery early. As he placed the day's fresh cake on the window shelf, he noticed something unusual. A folded note lay under the empty cake plate from yesterday. He picked it up and read, Thank you for the cake. My mother cried happy tears. One day, when I grow up, I'll buy a cake for someone else. Sam smiled. His throat tightened, but his heart felt light. He placed the note in a small glass jar beside the counter, next to others left by people he had helped. The jar was nearly full now. He looked at Mr. Daniel's picture and whispered, The circle is still turning. Sir. Then he turned the sign on the door from closed to open. The warm light of morning filled the shop. Outside, people walked by unaware that inside this little bakery, generations of kindness were still alive, passed from one stranger to another, like a quiet promise, as the camera would fade out if this were a film. The final image would be the same as the beginning, a child staring at a cake through a bakery window, and a gentle hand reaching out, offering it.